Hello there, folks. This is Keanotix back once again with good old Planetary Annihilation. Now, you may notice that this audio recording may sound slightly different. That's because I'm having to record this post recording because I goofed up somehow and didn't realize that my microphone was not recording for some reason. I think the USB slot on my PC is a little bit guffed. But anyway, enough of that. I'm going to basically just do this as post-commentary, and unfortunately this will have to do for the time being. I shall remember for next time. So this is me just going over my tech with basically complete orbital tech, basic air tech, and basic bot tech, plus the artillery tech that we utilised so heavily last time to do our little artillery creep tactic. And this is me just kind of working out where should I attack next, and I'm thinking on the whimsical note, yeah, let's just go left on this part here. Now, there isn't really any kind of grand strategy behind which nodes you attack first, only that you kind of have to search around for ultimately the home base of the various enemy factions. So far I've discovered at least two, the purples and the oranges. Now they're usually in the other edges of the map, like usually opposite edges of me. So usually aiming for that direction is usually a good idea. And they don't seem to like counterattack, which is very weird. They don't try and take nodes from you. At least, not the way I've seen. I've not actually lost a match yet in Galactic War, mainly because I don't put the difficulty high enough, but, you know, maybe it happens at that point. But we shall see. So I'm going in with still fairly, at least a sort of diverse toolkit of units and tech. But not exactly the full Monty, if you get what I mean. For example, I don't have any of the super weapons or the Titans, for example. But because I've got complete orbital tech, I should have access to the fancier stuff once I get the orbital fabricators up in the air, or into space, it seems. Now, I was a bit weirded out by the way that this solar system looks, because it's, strictly speaking, a metal moon orbiting a sun, and it's not even orbiting, it's kind of just sort of flying past it. And so I got two choices. I got number 1 and number 2 for my landing spots, and number 1 looked a lot more exciting because just the amount of green dots on the screen. Those are all metal deposits. Number 2, on the other hand, while it's a little bit more open space, like you can't really see it, but yeah, there's like little channels there and little walls on the surface that could impede building and pathfinding for the units. But I decided to go for 2 just because I think I could do with all that lovely metal anyway. So I get the commander to do my usual stick of putting down at least one of the factories. Usually I go for the vehicle one. Feel free to laugh at me in terms of, that's not the optimal build order. I'm afraid that I haven't quite got the hang of the whole optimal things either. Believe me, I love being optimal. Can't really help it, it's kind of in my nature. But unfortunately for me, I don't know what that is yet. At least not again. Well, against AI, I don't suppose it matters too much unless you put it on like extremely high difficulties. Then you really have to worry, because it's going to be outdoing you at every step of the way. So I got the first factory down, started building fabricators, the vehicle kind, and the commander is just busy making up some preliminary batteries, energy production, just to get the ball rolling on that front. And I decide, in this particular instance, to split my fabrication tasks, just so that they're kind of doing everything at once, rather than one big group going on a big, huge daisy chain. I tried to do several of them, maybe slowly, but nonetheless trying to get several metal extractors up at the same time. And truth be told, now that I think about it, I think I did abandon that particular fabricator that follows, well, the ones going, in our orientation, south, to get those other metal extractors. I don't see them ever again, really. Or maybe I do. Maybe I send them back into the middle of the base to construct some other stuff. But we shall see. In the meantime, I've got the guys right in the middle building I believe it's an air factory. And air factories are usually a good idea very early on, especially to get the fabricators up and running so they can get the metal extractors up in the furthest away places, they get around, not being hampered by the terrain. They can get around to your base a little bit easier. Usually they're a good shout for getting like your defenses up and running, for example. They will do it a little bit more swiftly. Whether or not they do it more efficiently is probably a question for more veteran players. So the commander very quickly finishes his little task, so I decide maybe I should get some defenses up, because this is a slightly harder AI I'm dealing with. At least that's what I thought at the time anyway. And I decide to go for the air defenses, because the first things that usually fly over your base are going to be air units, for the reasons I just outlined earlier with my air fabrication units. And decide, because the commander's a little bit slow in getting around, at least initially, I decide to send a few fabrication units after him too. And it's really just me kind of getting myself organized, getting the economy up and running, and I've already maxed out at metal and energy, at least for now, until I start building the more hefty stuff. And I don't have access to the storage units yet either, so I have to use the energy and the metal I have. But I've got a good gain that you can see off the top with the big blue numbers off to the side of each gauge in the middle. If that's blue and it's got a big positive next to it, I'm doing okay. Watch those numbers jump up and down in the course of this match. And there's the first instance of the enemy. They're sending a small scout to try and get info on my base. Not really much to see, if I'm honest. So in that sort of response, and I know that they've got air units up and running, I decide to get a few anti-air vehicles in a small patrol around my base. The air units are kind of following the commander, which should be the other way around, really. I should have got the air units to take over the duties of like doing all the turrets, but oh well. I had to get the commander to do something. So long as he's moving around, not like, you know, dilly-dallying or being a big fat target, then I'm happy with that. Not that I don't think the AI at this point has got anything to actually assault me with. He's probably just doing the same thing I am and just getting himself organized. Yeah, at this point, I've kind of left myself a little open. There's not really, you'll notice there's not really any combat units up and running yet. Nor is there any offensive turrets. So it's just the anti-air turrets. So if there's tanks coming along right now, I might be a bit screwed. Fortunately, if anything... Oh, there's one. You see down at the bottom left, I spot it, attacking some of my fabrication units. I think I made the mistake of like ordering them to do something else out of sequence. Fortunately for me, that little bot, I believe it is making himself a nuisance, so I have to get myself some tanks. I decided to cancel the extra anti-air dudes. Decided to go full hog on some light tanks. I do have a few fellas up. For whatever reason, the little bot either got shot or he got bored and ran away. I decided to get some defenses against orbital stuff, because usually they're a little bit harder to spot. At least for me anyway. I do usually have my camera a little bit too close. The little plane where the orbital bot sort of exists is a little bit further up, further zoomed out, shall we say. And of course I try and be clever and try and draw a line of basic turrets. Unfortunately the terrain doesn't quite allow me to do that, and then I start going a bit overkill for some very bizarre reason, but better safe than sorry. If anything, overkill is like the ideal norm in this game. And I went to all the trouble of making an orbital factory, and I was thinking about making some more, but unfortunately I've got to deal with a small bit of harassment. So I get the tanks to maybe start patrolling that area, because I don't know exactly where they're coming from. I know they're kind of coming from the south. That's perfect perspective to where we are. And I very hurriedly get the two remaining fabricators I've got on hand to repair as best I can. Although two bot fabricators are not going to be able to handle like a decent sized force if they turn up. Fortunately my tanks are built quickly enough and they take care of the small invaders. So I realised it's not going to be much of a reactionary sort of surprise yelping episode. I do apologise. But hey, I don't know, maybe this post-commentary will work out a little bit better. And I also spot a few planes kicking about as well, hassling my further away metal extractors. And then it finally occurs to me to get the proper vehicle fabricators to start building me some actual turrets, because I finally pegged that, yeah, they're probably, I say the south, like downwards from where I'm currently oriented. I'll start shifting the perspective soon, don't worry. One thing you have to get used to about this game is the many times that the camera's going to shift perspective, and the N key is your best friend, because what that does is reorients your camera to the North Pole. Or as best it can approximate the North Pole anyway. So I get the, what I'm doing up there with the orbital units is fabricating a small grid of orbital defense lasers. These things just zap things with lasers down on the surface if they get within a certain range. Very hard to deal with. You literally have to just get your own air orbital units to zap them out of the sky. Or if you just happen to build an anti-orbital laser underneath it, but good luck doing that when you're under fire by about 3 or 4 of these lasers. Not to say it's impossible, it has happened. Anyway, so then this is the point where I get the basic factories to start building a small daisy chain of units. Just a small complement of the basic troops, and put the factories on continuous build. So they're going to keep building 5 of each in sequence forever and ever and ever, and then once they're done that, they start all over again and start building 5 more of each. This does take a while, and you kind of need to have your economy in good shape, which you'll probably notice is not happening right now. I'm too busy like trying to deal with little incursions to deal with that, which is a bit silly, because if I looked at my metal recently, the fact that it's not gone down is like in the plus in the moment. I shouldn't be worried about a couple of units like taking out my furthest out factories. The factories? Extractors. But at least the orbital, it's providing good distraction for the orbital units to get the grid up and running. Say defense grid. That's really what it is. I kind of drew a grid of these things. So yeah, then I get the smart idea of getting a few tanks just to kind of patrol that area at least, and that way might deter them from attacking those points, or at least building metal extractors of themselves on those points, until I can get more fabricators out there to repair them or rebuild them. But finally address the energy deficit I seem to have made, which is harder to do in all honesty, because it's not like you need to build your energy production facilities on any specific points, at least most of the time anyway. But yeah, finally tweak the fact. I think my aerial units kind of flew over their main base. Then I orient the camera within the North Pole, and this happens. So now, to help viewers along, their base is north of where I am. At least north as it is. And my turrets obviously went up just in the nick of time, because they start blasting everything. And then I change where my tank and bot supply is going to start spawning. In a small little cove over there. Largely just to deal with that cheeky little bot there just shooting at my extractors. Don't take too kindly to folks rummaging my oil refineries. That was a horrible accent. Let's not do that again. And then to go completely back on my own words is to not do the I said scummy tactic last time. I did get shouted at for saying that. I tried to, yeah, I go for the lob tactic again, like the ones that shoot the tiny little robots at people. Despite the fact I could actually just produce the little robots now, but it's far more funnier to see them coming out of a big cannon. It's kind of like just like a low-powered railgun at this point. They don't seem to mind. They seem to have a whale of a time, I like to think. And that's my orbital lasers having a little bit of target practice as well. And the little patrol of tanks is a little bit too far out, but yeah, well, gets the job done. At this point, it's me just trying to hatch a half-decent plan in order to approach, because if I go directly from them as the crow flies from my base, I have to cross that small bridge you sort of see at the very, very top of the screen. That's an actual channel across this metal planet. Let's be honest with ourselves, this is a Death Star. It just is a Death Star. The only difference being is that the little laser, or the bit that the laser comes out, is stuck at the top of the planet, or the bottom, depending where you're looking, rather than coming out from one random one random face of the thing. Now that finally tweaked where the actual base is, I decided to build a small defensive line of advanced turrets there. Using the air units probably is the safer option. Safer being a interesting word at this point. They're not sending anything huge at me. They're not sending a large force. They're just sending the odd tank every now and again just to harass. And I have lost a few of my metal extractors, but you see it's not really done much for to impact my economy. It's kind of just evened out and no more. Energy's still bumming out, probably because of the amount of stuff I'm building. And then not really much else going on. It's kind of just a lot of my little production is kind of screeched to a halt a little bit. It's gone a bit crowded inside the base. And there's my little lovers going along. Very hard to miss that. Also means, because these things are defensive turrets, if they start firing, it means that they've seen something that you probably should pay attention to. Fortunately for me, they've actually kind of taken care of that little tank that was sneaking up on my base. I think I think I only build lubbers on that one side. I should really be building them on both sides of my base. But for some reason, the sort of eastern front is not really well defended, but they never take advantage of this. Of course, the commanders are very confused at the moment, because I think I only got them to build that one battery. And this is where I sort of mistakenly split my little bot fabricators to be building different batteries at the different times. Not a really big issue. They don't exactly take long to build. And I decided to use the little newly spawned little dudes to try and scope out the situation. Nearly get wiped out, but you got enough of them, you can easily handle any situation. And this is where the sort of building tons of units to swarm your enemy doesn't work out, because again, this happens. So I see they have their own pelters, or long-range artillery. And at some point it does occur to me I should probably build my own, and then I get a bit of a crazy plan. I then tried to sort of use that little tertiary sort of mob that I have to try and see if I can do a little bit of damage and even get a bigger idea of the scope of the situation. It doesn't quite work as I thought. Mainly because all the air units rush in first and then get annihilated, and then the ground units that do get there just as quickly also get just absolutely destroyed. And then my little bots like single file get themselves shot. Then it pays to put down a little radar. Surprisingly long range even for the basic radar. And yep, a little bit of artillery creep. Not really a creep, this is actually me legitimately just putting it in my defensive line of my base. So at least they're not going to come across that channel anytime soon, but at this point that would actually be far less effective strategy for them. Of course, my lobber going in there, causing them a bit of hassle, that's what we want. Then I get the bright spark idea of like getting my orbital fabricators to construct further orbital lasers as a defensive, but I take a few away just so I can build myself an orbital factory. Take advantage of, this is me taking advantage of the complete orbital tech, because that's an advanced building. Of course, my lobbers getting in the good work. Fortunately, they're not going to be much help when they do start sending much heavier tanks at me. Well, no, they can is another matter. And I say to myself to get those metal extractors repaired with those little tiny bots. If you send them to patrol, if you set fabricators to patrol, they'll try their best to like heal or repair anything that's damaged in the area you've selected. They don't. I've not quite worked out which priority takes what, but I don't mind usually at that point if I'm just getting them to do it. If I want them to do one thing over the other, I'll actually get them to do that specific command. Patrol just kind of means that I'm not really caring which order they do it in. Then I was thinking to myself, well, my only options are to go either round the channel or through it, and they're going to have defenses up to take care of either of those options. So I get a bit of a mad idea. So I was thinking to myself, well, that bit over there is empty. And if I approach their... well, yeah, now I finally see it. I see where their orbital defense finally takes care of my other orbital fabricators trying to build the lasers over their heads. Fortunately, I saved a few to build something else entirely. And I tried to build... this is me building the more advanced units for the orbital tech. The thing at the very top, with the big green 3 next to it, is like the orbital battleship. Shoots lasers from above. When I say lasers, it looks more like it's just raining down lightning. But those don't come out for a while. They're quite the hefty build. Now metal's actually started going down significantly. Probably because a lot of those orbital guys got shot down and they're no longer building those laser platforms. The pelter's doing in some good work. It'd be hard pressed to try and approach me now, short of just sending a whole bunch of bombers, but even then. So I have a bit of a stalemate. I can't really approach him directly, so I have to be clever. And unfortunately, it takes me a wee while to work out how to exactly be clever. I also noticed the cute little graphical detail of, as the sun's sort of passing round, all the stuff that's in orbit is casting a shadow on the planet, and that shadow's creeping along. Which I think is rather cute. Yeah, finally I twigged that maybe I should, if I build a teleport there, and then build one closer to my base, or as closer to my big chunk of units off to the side here, I could put a massive invasion force to go and flank them from the side. At least that was the plan anyway. It's not a bad way of getting units off-world. The only thing you have to worry about is getting some fabrication units off-world and make planetfall on your desired planet. There's multiple ways of doing that. You can probably send like just orbital aircraft to just carry your fabricator units across, or you could send the orbital fabrication units themselves. They can actually leave the orbit of the planet they're built on and land on any other planet if it's in the system. The only thing you have to worry about is that you're sending them in completely blind. They could get shot down when they finally reach their destination. Mind you, so can the transport units in that matter. But as long as you get a teleporter built up on one planet, you can send them through from one planet on your home base to wherever the other you build two teleporters, you link them together by clicking on both of them. This then gets you to do this. Now imagine doing that, but the other teleporter is on another planet, and you basically got the general idea. It's an excellent way of just having a surprise invasion force come out of nowhere. Really, the only thing that kind of defeats this plan is if somebody notices you're building a teleporter and decides to blow it up before it's got a chance to do anything useful. And this is me making a failed attempt at invading their base. I take out one of their orbital cannons, but not really the one that's the most useful.
Forces are under attack.
Yeah. So yeah, that little side invasion. I tried to do one side with the ground units and the other side with the aero units, and only to realise that the aero units are like paper mache, especially if the enemy has even just the basic anti-air defences. And I also finally peg where the commander is. So I decided to take action in that regard. There's not a lot to sort of do this. There's not a lot else that I can do about this apart from just trying to persist in this tactic. But I decide this time to send some fabrication units through to this magical portal of death. And for some reason I tried to make them go to the orbital platform instead, which doesn't work. So these orbital ones, and then decide, you know what, screw it, let's go for this artillery creep idea again. And so I get them to try and build 4 of the basic artillery units, and at least one lobber to kind of get some troops, start invading them. You also notice my my own artillery is doing some work. So they just get the first gun up. It starts at least causing some hassle. Unfortunately for me, their artillery units have already pegged where I am, and they're hassling me back. So in a sort of blind panic, I decide to send whatever forces I had built to assist the fabricators in building their nonsense. They already took out a couple of the guns that were in mid-production. So whenever there's a queue of buildings and the building gets shot down prematurely, they just move on to whatever next building you had going. Fortunately for me, they built the lobber quick enough. I try my best to save that first artillery gun because it's at least doing some damage. The lobber gets in some work, not that it seems to be all that effective. And also the artillery now is striking the fabrication units as well. That lobber unfortunately not getting to do the work that it was destined for. And then I desperately try and cling on to this sad hope of artillery creep. Try and get the lobber units to get in there, but unfortunately he's got too powerful of turrets and they don't get much of a chance to get further in. Fortunately though, I get another fabricate. Ooh! The lobber kind of just bombarding that poor building. And of course I get my trying fabrication units to save the lobber again. And I think, okay, well one cannon's not going to do it, let's try and get a few more in. Whether or not the AI's kind of worked out how to aim the guns directly, which you can't do actually, they decide to at least finally take out the gun that's causing them the most hassle. So hope I kind of leave them to their own devices and try and get more troops through that magical portal of doom. And of course the aero units can't go through the portal, so you've got to send them through other means. In this case I try and do that flanking maneuver again, but again I don't leave the building to happen long enough for me to build a decent sized force. But attack they shall. Unfortunately it's just little zapper units which aren't nearly as effective. Of course at this point I also completely forget that the fabrication units are still there and that the other invasion force is kind of finally teleported through. It's one fabrication unit and he's literally fighting the Alamo. The shortest artillery lob ever! And of course I've kind of done myself no favours by clogging up the lane with debris, which also holds physical heft. I decide to sort of resolve this issue by getting the combat fabricators who can't build buildings but can repair and reclaim metal. Try and get them to clear up some of the wreckage so that I can get my troops to slide on through with no resistance. And of course, for whatever reason, their commander decides to actually come out and deal with us himself, and unfortunately kind of puts himself right in the path of my other artillery gun. And he needs to sit there. And he just seems to want to keep taking it. Of course, because he's kind of hiding in the fog of war, I don't know for certain what else is happening. And the combat fabricators can't heal a building that's not been finished yet. So I check to see if my little supply of troops is replenished even just remotely, and I send them all through. The air units in their hand, and I just send them to go and patrol the same place to see if I can even give them some backup. Fortunately for me, whatever forces he uses don't actually sort of... whatever forces he had we were using to hassle my little artillery creep has kind of either been completely destroyed or is diminished, or he just kind of turns his attention elsewhere. And you can't see it because he still seems to be lobbing or pelting that commander and has not decided to move. Sort of massive AI fail there. Well, of course I don't realise this, and so I go for full gun force because I need to get rid of at least some of his defences, so at least I can get a decent invasion force to get in there and deal with him. And of course, the only units I had handy at the time were a bunch of Doc's babies. All they really did was kind of chew up some of the ammunition that they had in their guns. But unfortunately for them, my 2 orbital battleships finally got built, and there was a 3rd one on the way. And it was at this point I found out they weren't really going to be needed. But, oh well, they start coming along and zapping everything anyway. And of course I sent the aerial units to try and take out that one other anti-orbital gun. So that would certainly cause problems if it's not dealt with. Unfortunately, it's not quite finished. But fortunately, the commander is. With 2 battleships bombarding it, as well as the artillery giving it hassle, it was only a matter of time before it got properly destroyed. So yeah, the artillery creep still works. And I will keep using it until it stops working. But now, if they don't deal with me fast enough, I'll get some orbital battleships in their face. So yeah, not the most orthodox way of recording one of these episodes. Not really much I could really say about it, apart from, I'm sorry. I didn't want to do another fight and have you skip a battle, although, let's be honest, you probably wouldn't have noticed. Maybe something you would have noticed. I'll have to give you the benefit of the doubt. But there's plenty of battles more to be had, so you wouldn't have been shy of content. But I thought I'd try and rescue this episode anyway, because I felt really annoyed at myself that this didn't happen the way I hoped. But this is the point where I find out that I have access to complete bot tech, but I don't have enough slots to deal with it. But I already had basic bot tech, and if I get rid of that and get complete bot tech, I get the best of both worlds. So it basically is just a straight up upgrade. So I delete the bot tech, basic bot tech, and then I gather the complete bot tech. It's increasingly more difficult to say the more I try. So with that decision made, this is where the episode kind of has to basically end. But I hope you enjoy the sort of post-commentary version of one of these episodes, and I hope that in the future you will join me on my further adventures into this massive galactic war that I've just started for myself. Until then, I shall see you later. Goodbye for now.